Well, welcome to the show. It's July 17th, 2021, and these are a bunch of stories that I thought you might find interesting. I definitely found them interesting, or maybe they weren't reported that well in the media. This first story was definitely reported quite closely. It's the Euro 2020 loss of England versus Italy, but not about the game, obviously. It was about the barrage of racism that followed. After the game last Sunday, a tweet was posted and deleted by Australia's Channel 7, but not before catching the eye of the rest of Australia. And that's because this is what they posted. They posted 3 black players failed in the penalty shootout which England lost 3-2 against Italy. 3 black players. One of the first to point this out on Twitter was Twitter user Terang, saying, Channel 7, was it strictly necessary to point out that these elite athletes who represented England are black? Also, could you please let me know, are you now going to refer to the players with less melanin as white players? And then 7 tried to slyly cover up their mistake without noting the correction, but that wasn't before the same user pointing it out, omitting the word black. And while I appreciate and suspect that this is just the lone actions of an unsupervised journo graduate social media manager at 7, it's pretty satirical given that this is the drop in an ocean of racism brewing against the 3 players. Rashford, Sancho and Saka's social media accounts were inundated with racial comments within seconds of the last missed kick. The Verge reporting that Twitter had removed more than 1,000 tweets and had permanently suspended a number of accounts for violating its rules against harassment and hateful content. Facebook also told them that they quickly removed comments and accounts directing abuse at England's footballers last night and will continue to take action against those that break our rules. Messaging platform Telegram have been more tolerant of these types of comments against the players, or less tolerant depending on how you look at it, with Vice reporting that the 3 players have been singled out and subjected to explicit racial abuse, potentially more extremist in tone than other platforms, given Telegram's negligent hands-off approach to content moderation that gives extremist and racist channels a safe place to promote this hate. Which is fine from a free speech perspective, but on the other hand, from a QAnon, COVID conspiracy violence perspective, maybe not so much. And the reason I'm even mentioning this is because it doesn't end there. Of course, we had to hear from the spokesperson for everything black issues. No, not that guy. Prince William, of course. He tweeted, I am sickened by the racist abuse aimed at England players after last night's match. It is totally unacceptable that players have to endure this abhorrent behavior, which, yes, but then it kind of got turned around on him. Twitter specifically criticizing him for defending a soccer team, but when it came to the Meghan Markle, Oprah, Emmy-nominated wankathon, where Meghan Markle revealed that there was a lot of conversation within the British royal family about the colour of Archie, her son's skin, in the lead up to his birth. We didn't hear a peep from him, but what are your thoughts on this? Like, should he have just shut his mouth? I've not mentioned this story at all, And then let's talk about an article written about MGK by his high school friend, now GQ writer, who wrote an article about how MGK had posters of Megan Fox on his wall as a teenager. Megan Fox, of course, now being his girlfriend since last year. In that article, he anecdotally says that at least one classmate recalls him vowing he'd marry her one day. And yeah, while the Daily Mail gushed over this article and this revelation, and he's only 4 years her junior, I find this creepiness sort of familiar. Yeah. I think every little girl dreams about her wedding. I used to think I was gonna marry Tom Cruise. Katie Holmes back in October of 2004, which, makes sense given their age difference. They're 17 years apart, which only widens the creepiness. And it gets creepier, and this is where I see the connect with MGK. When that article said, Holmes decorated the walls of her bedroom with posters of some of her favorite heartthrobs, including the Top Gun star. And the main reason I found this interesting is because this creepiness really just confirmed everything I've always suspected about MGK. That Machine Gun Kelly is the Katie Holmes of hip-hop. You do a couple of things, maybe 1 or 2 great things, but it's in a sea of 100 atrocities. Loved his last album, But he's butchering rap though. Anyway, on to the next one, Scomo and McDonald's. But let me take you on a little journey back to 1997 for a second. I was midway through grade 1 with a shitty teacher, my shittiest teacher. Hi, Miss Caruso. And the Sharks lost the grand final. And at this news, Scomo shit himself in Engadine Macca's. According to local musician Joyride, 3 years after that tweet on Thursday morning, he finally addressed it, and he denies that it ever happened. He was on my favourite show, The Pinnacle of Journalism, talking about how he was going to unfuck the vaccine rollout. But instead he talked about this.
Hey, can I clear up one thing?
Not the
with you
Macca's
guys
thing. The Macca's
from
thing?
ages ago.
The Macca's thing, right, yeah.
It is the biggest urban myth ever.
So it's not even true.
That you pooed your pants at the Engadine McDonald's?
It's complete and utter rubbish. I found the whole thing incredibly amusing.
Sounds like dog shit to me. But that might just be the Daily Telegraph. I mean, have you heard? That's where his dog Buddy is a writer now. In fact, his dog wrote in that column that Scott Morrison, his owner, had been watching the Sharks game last Sunday at Kirribilli House, and the next morning, Jen, Scomo's wife, suggested he go out and clean up the veranda. I mean, if that doesn't tell you everything. And then everybody's favourite, most exhilarating topic, the Great Barrier Reef. The Australian government has been in full force the last couple of months lobbying to postpone the reef being put on the in danger list. They want that postponement to be pushed back to 2023. Instead, that decision is going to be made by UNESCO in the next week or two. Environmental Minister Susan Ley is also on the other side of the world in Europe, also lobbying to stop it. On Thursday, the government invited a slew of ambassadors from countries with voting influence on that decision on a snorkeling trip to see the state of the reef, because that's what the reef needs, more snorkelers. The government also gained support from oil-rich countries Saudi Arabia and Bahrain. And just in case you aren't up on the environmental disaster happening up north, the reef is suffering due to climate change and environmental deterioration nearby the reef. In a joint letter of 5 Australian scientists, they said, tragically, the reef has suffered 3 coral bleaching events in recent years. And the main risk to the reef is rising sea temperatures, which then results in that bleaching. 8 months back, it was reported that we have lost half of the coral reef over the course of the last 2 decades. And what is this about? It's about money. What else? The Guardian reported that the livelihoods of more than 64,000 Queenslanders rely on the reef, which 2 million visitors come to see each year, adding 6.4 billion to Australia's economy. And yeah, I get it. But if money is the issue, then nobody's allowed into the country. We can hardly travel around the country ourselves as Australians. We're not going to get 2 million visitors each year. Not at least for the next couple of years. Why not lose the money now that we're already losing? The Morrison government, of course, turned this around into a conspiracy theory about China trying to hurt us. Director of Australian Studies Centre Chen Hong said, "This fully shows the government's narrow-mindedness and all-pervasive to China." This is, of course, due to the ultimate decision maker in this, the World Heritage Committee, being chaired and largely dominated by Chinese officials. The government instead have put aside $100 million to restore the reef. And you can't make this up. The things included is fans to cool the reef and sun shields so it can regenerate. I mean, of course. Why didn't we just think about installing fans? If something's hot, you go put a fan on it. It's so simple. One reef professor called this money a distraction. And yeah, between hysteria about China and literally fanning the reef is commensurate with saying global warming doesn't exist because it still snows in the world. Anyway, that's the end of that story, and that's the end of this show. So if there's anything you think that I may have missed, anything you might want to add, any thoughts about any of these stories, I don't know anything about reefs, or I wanted to say Reeves just then. Do you think he's Katie Holmes? I think, what if he's actually just Katie Holmes? I haven't seen her in a movie in a while. Is she busy doing hip hop? Just drop a comment below. Drop a like below. Hit subscribe. and I'll catch you guys in the next one.
We keep hearing that 2014 has been the warmest year on record. I asked the chair, you know what this is? It's a snowball.